I found Japan as a second home here because I can go home in Ukraine. We won Best Atmosphere Show award, live music with EDM. It's a perfect blend. These guys are freakingly talented all the time. Of course, it's a job. You need to do the job. I'm an academical musician, but it doesn't make you money. Payment for Japanese is very low. Payment for foreigners is very good. That's the business.
Welcome to Unpacking Japan. I'm Toby, and today I'm sitting here with Oleg.
Nice to meet you, Toby.
Nice to meet you too. Am I pronouncing this right, Oleg?
Oleg, yes.
You're from Ukraine?
I'm from Ukraine.
You've been in Japan for quite a while, and you're a professional violinist.
Yes.
You've played at Universal Studios for a long time, and now you're kind of doing this on your own, performing all across the country. So let's talk a lot about violin today. But before we do that, maybe can you introduce yourself a little bit more and tell us what brought you to Japan?
Nice to meet you guys. Thank you for inviting, guys. Oh, it's a long story about coming to Japan. I used to thinking about coming to Japan for a long time before I came here. There were a couple of chances to come. Couple times I got some offer for working here, but it was not very good offer, so I denied it. But at the same time, I was feeling like, yeah, Japan is an interesting country. From abroad, it always looks like, what do you know about Japan? You know, samurai, you know, geisha, you know, sake, you know, katana, that's what you know, and sushi, of course.
So you're more on the traditional side of Japan, not necessarily the anime and...
Yeah. I never been the anime fan, but like traditional part, like we actually don't know much of a Japanese history. We know a couple of words, like from the game Red Alert, like strategy one. I knew that I played for Japanese. They have this like shogun and stuff, which is like technical. But that was all I knew about Japan. But at the same time, I was using Japanese gear, like Japanese electric violin, Yamaha. I was using Japanese car, Toyota. I was using Japanese Audio-Technica microphones in my studio. So I was like, yeah, Japanese gear is very good, high quality. I would like to go and see what the country is like. So then I finally got the offer from Universal Studios Japan that changed my life.
So before moving to work at Universal Studio in Japan, you were already a violinist back in Ukraine. Yes. How did you get into that?
Like I started when I was 6 years old. Sorry. I started when I was 6 years old, and when I found out that it works pretty well for me, I decided to continue with that, stopped going to school, stopped visiting all these like unnecessary lessons. I definitely had the terrible physics and chemistry grade. Like it was super low. Like at any time, I didn't even go there. My parents said like, if you practice, you practice. I practiced for an hours. I was participating some concerts. I didn't have time to go to school.
So very young, you were really like, I want to do violin. I'm good at this. I want to get better at this. And I want to do this full time.
Yeah. I found out that it really works well for me.
So I can imagine thinking about a professional career in violin, you can have like maybe classic concerts and you can maybe perform as part of maybe a modern band or record musics or soundtracks for movies. How did you find a job at Universal Studios?
So it's an interesting story, yeah. Back in Ukraine, we don't have such a thing that is being called performer, that like in the Western world is completely established job, completely established profession. In Ukraine, we have musicians, we have dancers, we have singers. We have pop singers, we have jazz singers, but some of them understand that performance is important as well, as same as their skill of the singer, same as their skill of the dancer. They might be good to perform and maybe add extra vocals. So I didn't know that this exists, but I found out after playing many years classical concerts, classical music, background music on the weddings, on the events, even on the TV shows, live TV shows we were performing. I found out that people are more interested if we give some action instead of just barely moving, but playing completely right, beautifully, all the scores that is written. We're just looking at that scores, which can be a little bit boring if you look at it. If you are not into music, you just need some performance. I noticed that somehow, and I recommended my colleagues, the guys who I was performing with, to continue our performance with the high quality music and add extra movements, what we can do on a stage if we're performing with the pop singer, like waving our bows, always standing, never sitting, because sitting is like a little bit boring look. Standing, and of course, kind of showing your personality. I remember the time when we changed the viola player in a string quartet. The guy was looking a little bit weird, but it was a kind of cool look instead of very academical look of the typical.
So break the codes of like the violinist should be wearing a tuxedo, bow tie, and he was like.
But he was like completely different look. It's like a little bit hard to describe. But yeah, this guy was different, and he immediately got popular among the fans of the main singer star, the guy who we were accompanying to. But because we were part of the band, we were part of the group, like even the fans of this popular star, they knew us, and this guy got popularity just because of his look and his action. So I was like, okay, that's nice. And I was also trying to make my own music, to make my own projects. I made a couple covers, recorded in the studio, recorded video. And one day when I got the offer from Universal Studio, it was not exactly offer, it was the casting offer. Do you want to participate in the casting? I said like, yeah, whatever. I was feeling good in Ukraine that time. I didn't know what's gonna happen, and I was casted by the video that I made, which is still, I think I have like more than 100,000 views on it right now.
Oh,
in YouTube, yeah, and it's a nice cover for the Sweet Dreams of the Eurythmics song. Yeah, it works well even now if I perform the song, and that made me contract with USJ first.
So how is the recruitment process? I've heard that, for example, they recruit a lot of performers, and they will have castings in different countries to kind of see who can perform on stage, and then they will fly you to Japan to work at Universal Studios Japan, which is in Osaka, and you will perform different...
Exactly right. But there are two types of casting. The first casting is about they casting the role that they always have, that never changes, and also in the places that they always go for casting and they never change. It's of course America, it's Australia, it's England.
So English native speaking countries.
Yeah, again, English native speaking countries, and the countries that have this strong culture. For example, they hire actors and ballet dancers in Great Britain a lot, because they have Harry Potter. So for Harry Potter they need specific actors to be in the park. Also, they hire ballerinas and ballet dancers in England as well, because it's also strong, but it's not necessary should be England. For the singers that can dance and dancers who can sing well, it's mostly America and Australia. And these guys are frequently talented all the time, so they go and cast them. They have a lot of videos to check after that. They casting doing a good job. They're getting the best people they found so far. But for us, it's a little bit different. As I heard, not sure about that, but the professional violinist, the violin who can also like perform, move somehow, and play violin well at the same time, entertain people at the same time. It's a very highly paid, I would say, job in America, in States. So in this case, the average payment, because all of us having this almost average same payment, never changed since it was established in 2001. So yeah, inflation doesn't affect it. It's just like staying the same. So these guys require more payment, but for Eastern Europe, like us, it's a huge money still. So for us, it's a good deal. So they found out that they can cast violinists in Ukraine or other Eastern Europe countries, and it will be a good deals. It will be good professionals, and they cast us with videos. They don't go there just for us.
So for Universal Studio, if you go there, I went there for in Japan. I went there for the first time in November. Mm-hmm. It's quite an experience. It's a very big amusement park. You have the different sections, and it doesn't have this Disney atmosphere where in Disney everything has to be Disney and magical and so on. But it's still a great park with a lot of different areas. You mentioned Harry Potter. They have Mario with a new Donkey Kong area opening. And you see the actors. So they are like in character and they perform the same movements again and again. That must be very tiring. But for you as a violinist, you have to put on like a show. So what kind of role did you have inside the park once you started?
Like we started with the same role we finished. It's the role of the violin performer in the show that is the musical show, popular tracks, dancing, singing, dance, I would say like it's dancing is more of a blocking, but yeah, it's fun. It's a street show. In 2017, we won the Best Atmosphere Show award from the organization called IAPA. This is like Worldwide Parks and Attraction Association, something. Every year they run the exhibitions and they run this, the award. And in 2017, it was the best atmosphere show in the world, which is, great honor for us. We tried our best. I edited the video, actually.
Really?
I was in charge of shooting and editing video for that.
Can you tell us a little bit about behind the scenes of what it's like working at USJ when you're not in the public area where all the guests are and you put on the show? What happens behind it? Is there like a good atmosphere with everyone working there?
There is a good atmosphere. Definitely, atmosphere is good. If it's not good atmosphere, you can't work there. If you complain a lot, they get rid of you like this.
Yeah, because you have to be in a good mood for all the customers that are coming. And
of course, it's a job. You need to do the job. You have pain in whatever. You need to do the job. You need to be happy. You need to smile. It's tiring. It's hard, but it's a job that people can do, and some people cannot. So, if the company can find the professionals who are capable not just to be beautiful performer, perform well, dance, sing, but also be capable of their body, be capable of maintaining their mental health and physical health, that's the important part.
That's interesting. I've read online mostly about Disney, a lot of challenges because the rules are so strict when you work there.
Same in Universal
Same in Universal Studios. Is it the same? Do you get the chance, for example, you perform at Universal Studios Japan, but Universal Studios, you have other parks in Asia and the United States.
Yeah.
Do you get to perform occasionally in other parks? Or
only if there is another, because every park is kind of a little bit different company. They are connected, but after my contract in Universal Studios Japan was over, they offered me the job in Universal Studios Beijing and Beijing Resort, Universal Beijing Resorts. UBR, but it's not the place where I want to go because I can't leave Japan.
You like it here?
I like it here. I want to establish myself in here. I found myself here. I found Japan as a second home in here because I can't go home in Ukraine.
What is it that made you feel home here in Japan?
I decided that I want to stay here. I decided that I love Japan. I love the culture. Of course, there's like plus and minus, there's always merits and demerits as well. But overall, Japan is a great place. I understand that I want to live here. I like it better. So in this case, I need to study language. In this case, I need to study culture. In this case, I need to study how it works everywhere. After that, it's fine. Sometimes I can feel, like maybe you guys as well, that we know the right way to do in Japan way more than Japanese, because sometimes they just don't know what to do in many situations.
Yeah, if they're maybe not familiar with the situation or they have been doing it in a specific way, they may not consider alternatives. And
for example, I know some Japanese people who doesn't know how to pay taxes because their parents still paying taxes for them.
Interesting. I want to get back to your career as a violinist.
Yes.
So you performed for 7 years at Universal Studios.
Yes.
How is it for you, professionally speaking, as a violinist, to perform at the same place, more or less a similar performance again and again? Do you feel like this has helped, or how has this helped you improve and become a better violinist?
That's, as I said, if you maintain your mental health, the physical health to deal with the routine, that's fine. But if you're bad with routine, and many people are, many performers are failing this place. They always excited in the beginning. They always overworking. They're so happy. And in a couple months, they lose that energy. They lose that excitement. And audience can see that. We can't show it. It's not professional, definitely, but I can't blame. I understand it's normal. It's not every person can do this job. I found the way that worked for me. And I would say we were lucky to be musicians, because if you're a stunt or you're a dancer or you're an actor or you're a singer, there are people that are above you who knows your role, who knows your job, who can always control what you're doing or not. Even you're doing better or worse, it's still, there is regulations and rules and the workflow. But with my role, there is no one above me knowing what I'm doing. I'm violinist. Who's the violinist? Office people? Directors? No. They are good people, but they don't know my job. In this case, I always can adjust. And if I willing to improvise, and I know it will be better to improvise in this place and not play the same score that I used to play maybe 200 times, I'll change it.
So you had a little bit of freedom of when
course.
you see your audience standing there and you see how they react, and you're like,
Yeah.
all right, within these boundaries, I'm gonna play a little bit more creative. with them.
Exactly. We all did that. That really helps. I would say that not every role has that possibility, but we had, so it helped.
And after 7 years, what made you wanna move on from USJ to kind of become more
I would say
independent?
that it was not my decision, because USJ is planning their own show flow for every year ahead of time. So it's something that we can't control. It's the worst part of being USJ performer, is that every year the contract is changing. Every year. In this case, you can't predict your next year. You can't predict your future, basically. You cannot.
It's always like year to year, a few months before if you're going to be renewed or not, and you're always waiting for this, and you can never, am I going to still be able to live here
Universal Studios performer having this issue. Everyone, every year.
Is there no time when you can become like a permanent performer?
There is no time. Universal Studios using performers as attraction. And the main word is using. That's the business.
So after a while you were like, well, I'm a talented violinist. I'm going to see what else I can do in Japan.
Exactly.
What came to mind? What was the first thing you wanted to do after you got out?
I already started shisha business like maybe 1.5 years before my contract was over. I was already doing business, my own business.
Shisha is quite far away from violin.
Yeah.
Is this like a personal hobby?
I just like it. I remember that I got interested in it when I was studying in university, music academy in Kiev. I asked my parents to bring me the first shisha pipe from Egypt. And that was the start when I was starting interesting about it, like already like 15 years ago, maybe more. So yeah, also my brother got interested in it, and he got pretty much a lot of influence in Ukrainian shisha world. So he already influenced me.
And so it naturally grew. You had your exit business.
So, and when I came to Japan, I found that Japanese culture is not that advanced as I got used to. 10 years late. Like we had that what I have here now, it was like 10 years ago. So I decided to develop it a little bit better. So I started my business. I started my YouTube channel, doing my best.
Have you been performing at like unconventional places after you left USJ?
Unconventional places what do you mean about that?
So I've seen on your YouTube channel, you've done nightclubs, you've done big concerts and festivals, but nightclub is not necessarily something where I would assume a violinist would go play.
That's why it's interesting. No? Yeah. I belong to, because my visa is the working performer's visa, I belong to the company that gives me ability to perform in such places.
So how how does a violinist fit into the nightclub? How do
No, it's really good. It's really good. There are lots of famous DJs like Timmy Trumpet or Mariana Bo. Mariana Bo is violinist exactly. Timmy Trumpet plays trumpet, obviously. They are really famous, just blending the instrument with the leads of the drop of the song, if you know what I mean. So that's how it works. It's really, I performed in a club and people are excited to hear it. Live music with EDM, it's a perfect blend. Live instruments with EDM is also a very good blend.
Is this something new in Japan, or is this...
It's new in the world, I would say, but it's not that new, but it's not that, I would say, developed or you can see everywhere. Of course, some DJs want to perform with musicians. It was 5 years ago, it was 10 years ago. But still the numbers are not that big. So any time you start performing with DJ, it always looks fresh. It's not like, we've seen that already, we've done that already. No, someone first maybe started like long time ago, but it's still fresh idea.
What about the violin? It's a very classical instrument. I imagine a violin as this kind of wooden instrument with chords on it. But when I've seen you play in those nightclubs, you use an instrument that has somewhat the shape of a violin, but it's kind of like open and digital too. Is this still a violin, or is this like a kind of different version of this?
It's exactly the violin. It's a violin, but electric violin. So everything the same, shape is the same. The acoustic wise, we don't need that body of the acoustic violin to create the sound, because the sound is being picked up from the vibrations of the strings that goes into the deck, that goes into the bridge, and being picked up from there by piezo or microphone, becoming the electric wave already, electric signal that goes to the amp. That the best combination I would recommend for any violinist. If you want to perform in a club or big stage with a lot of sound, acoustic violin is a very hard choice, because you will have a lot of noises going into the microphone that will try to pick up the violin sound. It will become a lot of noises, be a lot of, like, definitely drums are loud, definitely bass is loud, definitely audience can be also loud. It all will be inside the microphone. You don't need that. If you have electric violin, it's just the isolated signal.
So that's how you can perform also on stage at like
Everywhere.
big music festivals?
Yes, everywhere, because you just play here and it's becoming a great, huge sound that easy to mix. The sound engineer doesn't have any problem with it. And the model I'm using is Yamaha Silent Violin SV, Silent Violin 250 model. It represents a really high quality sound, almost very close to the acoustic violin. Of course, it doesn't have that harmonics, that feeling of real acoustic violin, but it's quite close, 75%, which is a very good. Compared to other violins that doesn't give even 50% of the similar sound, no.
So when you step out on a festival stage with a violin, what is the audience's reaction? Do they know? Do they expect? Are they surprised?
People like it, but again, Japanese audience reacts more on the famous songs that they know.
Interesting.
That's the main thing. It's not the audience that, we want to hear something new, we want to hear some arrangement. They don't understand arrangement. They don't understand. This is normal. It's normal people. They know the song. They're happy with this song. If they don't know the song, maybe they like it, maybe they don't. But they will be most excited if they hear the song that they know. That's the way that it works for normal people.
So in a way, what you discovered in Ukraine in terms of combining classic instrument with performance has become really what you've wanted to do here in Japan, and you have like this modern touch on violin. And before we started recording, I said, you remind me a little bit of David Garrett, the German violinist who also does this. But you told me that he's an extremely talented violinist, but doesn't perform that much. He's still more kind of the classical approach with modern songs too.
Yeah, that's what he is doing, and I like the style. He has a complete image, which is, made by a very smart people. It is a complete project. Many people in charge of that, composers, arrangers, producers. It's complicated business, which is, we already see the complete product. And you can make similar project if you want. You can be a copywriter for that. You can just, creator, producer. You can pick up any musician you want and let them make what they want or what you see they want, like something like that. So David Garrett is the academical musician, really high skilled, really very highly skilled guy. But how much you can make with the academical music? That's the question. I figured that out on the second year of being in musical academy, that academical music takes too much time. It's very challenging. It's very good. It's respect, but it's not going to give you much money. But if you play pop song, R&B song, whatever, the song that people know, as I mentioned before, the songs that people know, they can be, yes, I know the song. That gives you money.
What about Japanese violinists? For example, USJ, you performed the violin there. It could have technically been also performed by Japanese violinists.
Yeah, but the idea of Universal Studios is to bring foreigners. Japanese want to go and see foreigners. It can be technically performed by Japanese, but Japanese don't want to go and see Japanese performing. They want to see foreigners performing. That's the idea of Universal Studios.
But do we see this generally in Japan, this kind of new approach to violin or to classic instruments?
Our show was very popular, as I said, like we also got this award, and just among all these years, it's no doubt we were a super popular show. Just Universal Studios decides to change the, guys, thank you, done a good job. But idea of Universal Studios to change the topic, to change the idea every year. We understand that. That's completely understandable. They wanted to try something else. I wish them luck.
What I meant also is in terms of the actual performance in Japan, when you see musical education and you see young Japanese violinists, is there an interest to have this modern approach like you have followed?
Yeah, of course. There are lots of... it's exactly the same. I would say it's more developed than Ukraine, because in Ukraine, if you're academical musician, and if you're a violinist, barely violinists go to the jazz, pop, and all sorts of stuff. They stay academical because we have nothing but academical education. In Japan, they have jazz education. In Japan, they have all sorts of self-studying. So many people trying to study by themselves, and they can't perform Paganini. They don't even want to. They just can play some pop song, and it's already enough for the people to be happy, and they can develop themselves as the violinists, which is good.
So it's quite different, you would say.
It's quite more broad, I would say, in Japan. The violin world in Japan is way more broad than in Ukraine, for sure.
Interesting. I would have maybe thought the opposite, that in Europe there's a more open approach to violin and kind of try to use this instrument in original ways like you've done, and Japan would be the more traditional.
Of course, if you're a classical musician like me, usually you have nothing but you need to see the scores. You don't see the scores, you can't play. That's academical musician. I'm sorry, but I was like that. What should I play? Can you improvise? No. Can you play by ear? No. Give me scores, and I will use all my professional skills that I gained for years and years and years, and money that I spent for academy to perform it, but I need scores. On another side, there are guys who can't even read that scores, but they playing everything on the fly, but that everything is, silly pop songs or jazz or Irish music, which can be, it's complicated in a way, but in order to play a very complicated classical piece, you need years. In order to play that Irish, maybe even complicated piece, you need maybe a couple weeks. That's the difference that people never see behind it. Like my friend, after tomorrow graduating from the musical university in Yokohama, pianist, and she asked me to accompany her with the very complicated sonata, which I'm studying right now. I'm not gonna make any money on this. I need to pay for Shinkansen to go to Yokohama. I need to pay for a hotel to stay there, just to perform in, I think, in almost empty hall. Of course, it's her graduation exam, but it's a concert. And I practice that sonata for 3 months already, just to play it in an empty hall. It's challenging. I can't say no. I'm an academical musician, but it doesn't make you money. And a lot of violinists that I know in Japan, being not academical violinists, they can't even imagine themselves playing that. It's way beyond their level.
Interesting.
Above their level, sorry.
Is this something you've tried in Japan, to go back to some more classical form of
This is my first time actually to come back to the classical form of performance, but it's just a hobby. This is a hobby that takes money that instead of makes money.
So it's the same instrument, but very different kind of approaches to music.
Exactly.
So talking about performance, where would you like to perform in Japan if you could?
No, I would like to perform I am performing in Osaka pretty much. I would like to perform in Tokyo as well. With my performance, I can go to such a places like Okinawa or Hokkaido. I would be also happy.
Yeah. I'm curious about the collaboration side of music. Violin is it's an instrument where you independently can make beautiful music, but it's also an instrument that goes very well together with others.
Yes.
Is it quite common in Japan for musicians to collaborate?
Yeah, of course. Like lots of bands, like big market of the bands, people are performing, bass players, guitar players, piano players, drummers, they're collaborating and inviting violinists as well, making concerts, duo, trio, quartets, quintet, like all sorts of different genres. They all just like around.
Have you tried to play or to have like your own band, or do you prefer
I don't have my own band, but in Japan, I would say the market of performance is way more advanced than Ukraine. That's why in Ukraine we don't even try. At least when I was there, long time ago, we didn't even try to make a concert in order to make money. I remember we've done once, but it was for a shooting. Well, string quartet, academical music, we invite people come and see in a gallery, it's very beautiful, it's very nice. We needed shooting. So maybe if the gallery made some money with the customers, we are happy, but it's not what can make you money. We having concerts, we having tickets, we having posters, normal thing in Ukraine doesn't work. People not gonna go. But what's working is like corporate parties, weddings. This is where people expect to see some performance when someone gonna pay for it. In Japan, it works. If you are popular, if you have fans, you can rent some hall and make a concert. So this is what people are doing, cooperating. If I have a need to do that, I can easily find musicians to perform with me. It's just the money.
Is it more typical in Japan to organize concerts, so to say, by yourself, where maybe you contact some other musicians and you're like, oh, let's do a concert, and you find a place and you ask them if you can rent it for the evening?
All sorts of stuff. You can organize by yourself, you can organize and invite musicians, you can ask musicians to find the place, everything.
Do you need to work with a sort of agent?
You can work with the agent, you can do it by yourself. You're free to choose.
Interesting.
It depends. There is no such a rule like if I don't have an agent, I can't do that. No, you can.
Because we had it's maybe a slightly different music branch, but we had a DJ on the show a few months ago. Mm-hmm. And to perform at nightclubs, you need to go through those agencies that basically will send you.
Yeah, with DJs it's a little bit more complicated, but as much as I belong to the company that manage DJs and clubs, it's easier for me. If I would choose to, hey, I want to be a DJ, they can immediately find me a place.
Interesting.
But of course, you're right. If I'm the guy from the street, that's harder. That's Japan. You need to go for their gigs. You need to be around. They need to see you. Then maybe they will give you some chance to DJ something for free somewhere. And then it takes time to gain. That's why I think like the company that I belong right now for the performance, they also have like music, like DJ Academy, because they not just offering you education, they also offering you some sort of job and performance after it.
They give you access to the network, basically.
Yes, that's good.
Musically speaking, have you released any albums or any kind of...
I do my original songs. Now I'm actually, as much as I started belong to this EDM culture, a little bit more, I'm producing the songs that into EDM, because I used to produce a lot of music during like already past 20 years, different styles, rock. I even wrote one rock opera.
Rock opera? Wow.
Yeah, for the Ukrainian National University of Taras Shevchenko. They offered me to make the rock opera for them. It's like, I don't know, maybe 10 numbers, 12 numbers. Yeah, it was done. It was fun. They were touring with it.
So when you compose something like that, can you tell us a little bit about the process? Where do you even start when you have to create a whole musical project?
Better to start from the first bar and finish at the end. That's how you do it.
Yeah. So it's like chronological, or do you start with a concept?
Pretty logical. Sometimes I do mistake and create something in the middle, so create the strongest part, and that's mistake. And after that, I'm lack of ideas. You better not to go to the most juicy part of the track. You should come to it naturally instead of just going like, okay, it's a great idea, I will make it, I made it, okay. So and beginning and the end, what I do, and just done.
Is it the same when you compose music with an electronical music background?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, my background is not electronical, more of a rock and acoustic.
Okay, so even that also works in the performances you're doing now?
Yes.
Interesting. It's very different because we've had a few musicians here, and they all do different style. We had like soul singer, we have like a J-pop musician, we had a DJ, and now we have you as a violinist with a very classical background doing very modern take.
Actually, I can do all sorts of style that you just mentioned. Like, I don't say that it will be the great, but if I have a task to produce this style, a little bit of research and going, and a little bit of, for sure I can play it in the violin on the fly, but producing this music takes a little bit of research. With EDM, with DJs, I can produce without research.
Do you feel like the Japanese audience is different than overseas?
Everywhere the audience is different. Like every place has a different tastes. But so Japan has, I would say, maybe the biggest variety of tastes than any other country in the world, because they like everything. If you want, in the 80s, 90s, if you want to become a famous, you need to go to Japan and do a tour here. Like everyone came, famous rockers like Deep Purple, Pink Floyd, they were performing in Japan. It's a famous concert in Tokyo, like for Deep Purple as well. If it's the pop singers, yes, their performance in Japan is also famous. If it's like super complicated funky style, like Snarky Puppy, they also came to Japan, because if you want to be famous, you need to come to Japan. Japanese love everything. There is no, now they're obsessed with K-pop, but they still love jazz. If the famous jazz musician will come, they will have a full pack, like completely full seats gonna be sold. If a famous DJ gonna come, same. They eat everything. You can feed them whatever you want.
What is the trend at the moment?
But now, like in the in the club culture, actually hip hop in Osaka is way more stronger because of TikTok. TikTok is influencing everything. It's changing the game. So whatever music the people, I don't watch TikTok. I have it. So I post some videos there, but I never even opened to see the video, so I immediately skip it. So I don't want to give them algorithms to understand what I like or not. They're not gonna figure out. But people are inside that TikTok. So whatever they see, whatever they hear, they want to hear in the club. They want to hear in the place that makes them happy. And the industry is adjusting for TikTok. Industry is adjusting for this tastes of the audience. Yeah, a lot of hip hop, a lot of Japanese hip hop, Not my style, not my thing. To me, like it's completely different. But yeah, in Europe, I would say that in EDM, the trance is not that much, but mostly techno and tech house are famous. But yeah.
It's interesting that you're saying now social media is actually shaping musical trends, and that because something becoming popular on social media, the musicians have to adapt what they're playing and to kind of maybe renew themselves all the time. Do you think a musician that is just performing one style is going to have a hard time nowadays to keep performing if they don't maybe...
In Japan, no. In Japan, definitely the audience, if you have your audience, it will stay with you forever. They can listen to one song for a million times and ask for another million.
There's a strong fan culture in Japan.
Yeah. And nothing like if in our country something can go out of date, it's not going out of date in Japan. It just stays forever.
That's interesting. How do you deal with this personally? You said you don't use TikTok personally, but you still post there. And now the trend in the nightclubs where you occasionally perform is hip-hop, which is not something you too much into.
I don't know. I just posted because I feel like that's something that I should do for promotion. That's all. And still, from all my videos I posted on TikTok, the most popular was the classical music with my kind of EDM arrangement that I've done maybe 3-4 years ago. I recorded video last year, like vertical, not horizontal way, like it's supposed to be done. But yeah, posted in TikTok and it immediately like got to like it just fit the algorithm.
Is technology beyond social media, but actually with the instrument, changing as well and affecting violin? So, for example, these electronic violins, probably a few years ago, they didn't exist. Now they came. Do you think we're going to see something new soon that will maybe change again?
I don't think so. Like, no, of course, maybe many people like discovering something else, but the violin is not the primary instrument. We need to understand it's not the... For now, DJing being more popular than anything else. You can be a professional musician, you can be, the best pianist or violinist in the world, but people know the famous DJs.
True. Especially younger generations.
Yeah. I would say, I don't know, yesterday I was checking the new stuff that was presented on NAMM. NAMM is the World Musical Gear Exhibition in California. So a lot of new synthesizers coming, a lot of new interesting gears coming, but it's always coming. It's always a lot of stuff. You like never end. You're checking like I want this, I want this, I want that. But it's mostly for a live performance. You can perform EDM using live. It's not like just like play and play. No, you can arrange everything like drums and basses and all sorts of plugs and all sorts of synthesizers on the real synthesizers that are around you, and you're just doing the professional live EDM performance. I think it was always there. It was always here. People were doing that all the time, but I hope that one day it will be a real, like more a bit of a big industry, not just DJ playing his famous song. Because what DJ need to do, like as when I saw today in Instagram, someone posted the videos from GMO Sonic in Tokyo. The famous DJ plays his famous song, and until next song he has a couple minutes of freedom. So he just climbs and dying craziness on the booth. It looks amazing. It's a good performance, but he's not playing actually right now. In this moment, he's just like,
it's a pre-recorded
spreading
song.
champagne on the people. That's what he does, and people like it. Okay.
One thing that is still very popular in Japan and that is completely gone overseas is buying CDs.
Yeah, I actually wondering why.
Do you produce your CDs sometimes?
No, I don't.
No. You see, when you walk around in some Shoten-guys, you will see a small performer just like singing for a few people, and they will have their own CDs for their self-promotion.
Even more, they're trying to perform on the street. I'm not into that.
No, not at all.
Like that's definitely for my point of view, maybe it's my cultural thing, but it's definitely diminishing your values.
That's interesting because I just read a study the other day about basically it was about positioning and branding. And they took the example of a violinist. I don't remember his name, but they did an experiment with him.
The guy who was performing in the street with but next day he was Joshua Bell. Next day he was performing in the
Opera or something.
It was not opera. It was the Metropolitan Opera in New York.
And yeah, exactly that one. And so he performed, and people were paying like hundreds of dollars to see him in the setting of the opera, and the same person performing on the street, and people were annoyed, and people were like, "Oh, he's disturbing my business," but he's a world-class violinist.
Yeah, that's reality.
So the setting matters.
Of course. Even like a couple weeks ago, I saw the story. Another like quite famous violinist. I follow his Instagram. He's American, but I think with Chinese background. He also posted similar video because I don't think it's completely true. It might be just, he posts a lot of pre-produced videos as if like I'm going on the street and I hear someone playing music, I take my violin out, and now it's like boom. It was prepared. But with this video, it was looking like pretty much naturally. Definitely, if there was some setting behind it, definitely the reaction of the people you can't set up. And the reaction was, there was the guy playing pop songs with some background R&B like on the violin on the street, and lots of people were just having fun and seeing him, I don't know, maybe Europe, maybe America. So he was getting the crowd. And when he stopped for a while, this famous violinist with like millions of followers on Instagram, and also he's being like a really skilled violinist, not just popular academical violinist. He just got his violin and started performing like very difficult academical piece, and the people were just lost interest to his music, and like, okay, it was not the crowd anymore. The crowd just disappeared. It's okay, he's playing something. And another time when he moved to I think he was performing Chaconne of Bach, which is like takes years to study. So when he came to the point in the middle of that piece, when you play a lot of notes in 1 second, it's kind of fast. It's not that hard, but it's like a prepared chords, but it sounds like very, very much intense. Reality is it's not that hard, but looks like, wow, so much technique. The crowd got to get again. So yeah, setting is important and whatever people can understand. It's the same musical piece, but people might be interested in this particular part and have zero idea to the establishing the melody, developing the melody, how it grows, how it works, how it changes. And then you go to some technical part and that's interesting. That's what I like to listen.
It's interesting, right? They see the result, but they don't see all the work that got into it.
Yes,
and probably this very technical part is also a consequence of all the rest building up to it in a way.
Yes. That's what I say. Same in the beginning, not within his own performance of one song, just comparing the guy who was performing pop music with background, with drums on the, some boombox, and the guy who's playing acoustic violin only, staying just performing academical music. Is a huge difference for the people. Huge difference on their reaction.
In Japan, people like the reactions, and street performance is still very popular. And usually, very quickly, you see a small crowd gathering around, cheering for the person, whether it's good or bad. I feel like there's this kind of community feeling of wanting to support street performance. And
I think they just is the feeling of the Japanese. Maybe you're right. But I also know how the fan culture works in Japan. The people want to become someone's fan, which is not like mentally, I would say it's not very healthy. That I'm not judging. People want to be a fan of someone, and sometimes they see the performer and they say, okay, I support you, I'm gonna be your fan. Why? I don't understand. Why you need to be someone's fan? Maybe you just be a fan of yourself. But Japanese really need that. Many, not all of them, not 100%, but more than 50, I definitely feel like. Plus, minus.
Interesting. You have a long history here in Japan now, quite a few years.
Not that long
Not that long compared to others, but you still have plenty of years ahead.
Yes.
What are the things you'd like to do in those coming years?
Oh, I have a lot of plans with my music. I'll have a lot of plans with my shisha business, but it stays planned, so I can't tell it like straight because it might not happen.
Any dreams, perhaps? Anyone you'd like to play with?
I would say I would like to travel more.
Yeah. Within Japan?
Within Japan and abroad as well.
Music is the right way to do it, right? You can find performance.
In this case, I need to do my best with music. That's what I'm going to do.
If someone is listening to this or watching this episode and is thinking about, I want to maybe work at USJ or I want to become a professional musician in Japan, what kind of advice would you like to give them?
If you're a foreigner, it's a good dream to work in USJ. If you're Japanese, don't even try. The payment for Japanese is very low. The payment for foreigners is very good. That's something that is not equal in this world. In Japan, and basically same in Disney. Something that people need to understand. Foreigners being paid well. Foreigners being treated well with the strict rules. Of course, we need to obey a very strict rules, but same time, it's worth it. Japanese paid small, cheaply, but they're free to do whatever they want outside of the work. It's first thing. If they want to become a musician, I would recommend them to think twice.
To really consider.
Yeah. I can say that I'm lucky to get these offers. I'm lucky to have this job. Of course, I worked hard for it, but I saw many other people worked harder than me and didn't get that.
Maybe sometimes it's just right time, right place.
Exactly. It's always right time, right place. It's a game. If that, the people need to understand it ahead of time.
Yeah. Is there something that we talked about so many things, from you moving from Ukraine to Japan, working at USJ, leaving USJ to kind of become independent, performing at nightclubs, performing at festivals, and we talked about street performers in Japan and overseas. Is there something that we haven't really touched upon from your experience with violin in Japan or as a musician generally speaking?
Oh, that's a complicated question. I need to think a lot about that. I don't know. There's always something behind. There's always some stories behind. Can't come with any right now.
Do you have any memory of a performance that really surprised you, that went unexpectedly well, or something happened during the performance that you didn't expect at USJ? Or
I would say everything was pretty stable. There's not much of a surprises in that. Everything, there are sometimes like brilliant feeling, like exciting feeling coming from the audience. Yeah, sometimes there is not. That's the point. But it's not always your fault. It's not always what you can control. You just need to be ready to perform in your best, whatever audience is watching you.
I think that's a professional violinist speaking.
Professional performer, I would say, yeah.
Well, thank you, Oleg, for coming today and for sharing so many insights into USJ, into playing the violin. I hope that our listeners found it very interesting. I certainly did, and I learned a lot. And I'm very curious to see you perform live.
Thank you.
For everyone who's very curious, we're going to leave links to your YouTube channel, your Instagram, so people can find you and see a little bit what kind of music you do and what's coming next.
Oh, thank you. I'm really happy to, it was a nice talk. I like to talk.
Yeah, I like to listen. That was great. Thank you, Oleg.
Thank you very much.
This was Unpacking Japan. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and see you again next week. Bye.